What's up guys, so as you guys know, I'm doing a series on rotation and separating each set and talking about what cards we're going to be losing and how they impact the game or how they would further impact the game if they were to continue being released. If you haven't seen part 1, which is of course Crimson Moon's Fairy Tale, please check that out first. It's not super mandatory to go in like order, you don't have to watch them, but if you aren't aware of what we're going to be losing, it would make more sense to just watch it in order. So it should be in a playlist with this one. I'm going to be just doing them. The next two will be next week on Tuesday and Thursday. So just tune into those as well. But yeah, so this is essentially part 2. For anyone that hasn't seen part 1, watch that first. So The Castle in Heaven and Two Towers was released here in the States at the same time that Crimson Moon's Fairy Tale was. We got them together as our first two sets. And we didn't have any starter decks at the moment other than the Valhalla ones, so those are the ones that we were forced to play with. Bahamut was one of the first rulers that everyone really liked in the beginning, but he was nowhere as competitive until the release of Regalia, and that's when there was that whole kind of accidental Bahamut phase where Bahamut was just completely ruining everything, and like everyone hated Force the Will because of how like strong the deck was. There was no way to beat it essentially unless you played Bahamut, or like that's kind of when Alice World was starting to peak, and so there was that possibility as well, but it still really wasn't as strong as it could be, especially because of how fast Bahamut was. But generally, for anyone that doesn't particularly know this, I think the release of the starter decks was rushed so that people had something to play at their locals because there was no kind of starter deck to go to. So if for those people who like quit Force of Will at the time, they didn't realize that cards like Dead Scythe and stuff were supposed to be released at the exact same time as the starter decks were, because essentially A1 wasn't supposed to come out so quickly with the starter decks, I mean. And so we would have had the answers to what made this deck so overpowered. It was just not given to us until later when we got the actual Seven Kings of the Land set. So I kind of look at it as an accidental format. I don't count it nearly as like one of the broken formats of Force of Will or anything. I think with the addition of Reflect now, that's kind of a format that we know is very Reflect heavy, and it's not like an accent or anything. They've been eradicating the card, and it still seems to be shining on top. So that's something that I would say is maybe more like an accident. But with the Bahamut thing, a lot of people were saying like, oh, Force Will doesn't know what they're doing, they're not testing or anything. But technically they did have all the cards ready to beat a deck like this, it's just they weren't released yet. So Bahamut still continues to be one of the most like rogue decks now, and it just kind of, because of how fast they can win if you're not prepared for it, they kind of try to steal game 1 with this and then either side of this in game 2 or just have you completely off guard for game 2 anyway, or game 3, because you're going to be going first on game 3 anyway if you make it that far. So it gives you a really big advantage. This is the only ruler I picked in the set to talk about because Abdul is now, he could be good, I guess you could say, because he does blank swiftness off cards, but it is kind of really slow to deactivate him. Even with like green, if you like happen to go Elvish Priest turn 1 and then deactivate on turn 3 by just paying 3, there's just too many answers to J rulers nowadays, so he wouldn't be as strong as he used to be. But yeah, Bahamut is definitely one of those cards who is just going to continue to see play as a rogue deck, as a really quick deck to try to beat out all the other decks every like now and then. Just because of how fast the deck can be if you're not prepared for it. And a lot of people are so busy siding for Reflect that it just gives Bahamut more space. And then for special stones, other than the dual stones, I only picked Cruz Balesta, the ceiling stone. This stone is not seen as much, isn't seeing as much play today, but this was actually a really, really good stone. I mean, what a lot of people didn't realize is the fact that a stone offers removal is completely insane because all you're doing is paying mana during either your draw or after draw when you recover, and that's really insane. Like if you were able to, like, there was a whole format where Goose Ballista was like the best card to play and why Black Red was so good, because you could Goose Ballista something like an Abdul and then just Flame of the Outer World it, and there was nothing your opponent can do. Any 10/10 card like Hamlin or Abdul, any J ruler, anything that was essentially just 10/10 or lower would die to Goose Ballista during draw, recover, flame. There was just nothing your opponent can do. And not counting killing all of the little familiar holy winds, weakening anything that you might be wanting to do some damage to. It was just Group's Blaster was originally one of the best cards in the entire game, and I'm kind of sad. I recently made like a Gil Lapis deck I was messing around with that sided into Dark Alice, and I had this stone main, and I never had a reason to use it because I would have Gil Lapis on the field and I can do -2/-2 instead or something like that. So I'm kind of surprised that this card isn't as good as it used to be, or just not in the current meta anyway. But it really was one of the cards that I feel like if Dark keeps getting support and you can play like mono black to avoid split, this would still be a really, really good card. And then just for all the dual stones, there is of course the blue black, the red black, the white blue, and then white green and red green. Just like in CMF, these stones I'm not going to be happy to see go. I haven't been able to respond to a lot of the comments on the first video, but I will after this video and just catch up with everyone about this. But some of the comments were saying that, you know, it was kind of an argument to my point of how if you take dual stones away, it makes the game very linear and it forces certain decks to play in like a specific way. But they were saying that that's kind of what the meta is anyway now with Reflect. And you know, that it's kind of a bummer that everyone's playing the same deck anyway because there is so much creativity you can put into these decks. And technically, I like totally agree with that. I'm not really, I hate like metas where everything's just one deck. I'm really, really like big on being able to just make like a deck that beats all the other decks and play that. And it's true that our meta right now is very linear, but I think it's just because of how fast the combination of Alice World with Reflect just is, and or Red Rush with Reflect. It's to the point where like I made a post on Facebook yesterday and kind of had a discussion with everyone about how if I was pro making Red Rush weaker, and a lot of people were saying, well, if Red Rush is, you know, out of the picture, that Alice would be more dominant. And my point wasn't to get Red Rush out of the picture. It was just like Alice World already has an amazing matchup against Red Rush because of Robo the Fire Rat. And my idea was if Red Rush isn't so good against every other deck that somebody can possibly think of, it might make other decks better against Alice World, which would then cause like a meta where it's not just Alice World because people are playing something like maybe Dark Alice who does really, really well against Alice World, but can't really have the time to set up against a deck like Red Rush because it just kills you too fast and you die to split. So I don't know how the meta would shape up. I'm obviously not some like forcible wizard. I just think that it would be better to like Red Rush for it to get dumbed down, just to allow other decks to shine. And I think that's where these dual stones come in. So if Split wasn't so potent, which I feel like there's so many ways for every color to get damage in nowadays, except for maybe like a mono blue deck because I think mono blue is still extremely weak and forcible. But every other deck is in a pretty good spot just now with all the card pool we have. And I don't think a card like Split is mandatory because back in the day you kind of needed it in red. There was no other way for you to get in damage. It was just really, really, really relevant because Gretel was so strong. But nowadays it's like it punishes the players for trying to beat all the other decks that are typically the only decks you see in tournaments. So that's kind of a bummer. Like if I want to play Dark Alice against Reflect and I'm confident that my -2 will control the board and my J-Activate can wipe out the Guibers, I'm punished by Split, which is negatable by another Reflect player. So I think that was just kind of what I was going with, but I still like I understand where people are coming from, where the meta is very linear, but I don't think that's the dual stones fault because essentially, like I think if rotation happens, depending on what our card pool is for next set, but if we lose all of the cards, I think fairies are in like the best place ever because you could just play like 4 Rulers Memoria, 4 Fairies Memoria, and you have like a full fairy deck, which seems like is really going to be hard to combat that if they're using Reflect with 4 Change the World and like 4 just any like 1 of Regalias or 4 of anything and just using Rulers Memoria and Fairies Memoria. That's literally 10 colors at almost all times for fairies, and no one else with dual stones would be able to compete with that. Depending on what we get in the future, by the way. But I genuinely think that like fairies would like rule the world, which I'm kind of okay with because everyone knows how much I like fairies. But just generally speaking, I don't think dual stones are the problem. I think it's just the just what's happening with the meta right now. For the creatures, I have to talk about Cheshire Cat first. I was gonna kind of leave this for last because I wanted people to think I forgot about it somehow, but I couldn't do that. I didn't want to like mess with anyone. So, Cheshire Cat is the greatest blue card in the game. It's arguably probably one of the top 10 cards just in the entire game, if not like top 5 or top 3 or something. I actually really like Cheshire Cat, and I'm gonna be extremely sad to see it go. And for me, in a perfect situation, would be them like just reprinting it common in like A4. I mean, in Vingolf 2, and then like everyone would just have it, and it wouldn't be a problem. And I know some people are gonna like not like that, but it really depends on what they give blue. If blue becomes more relevant, I won't be sad to see Cheshire Cat go. But we literally only have Cheshire Cat and Hera and like Adam Broly. Those are the only 3 relevant blue cards in like the entire game. Maybe like Glimpse of Kaguya, but it's like a tech card. It's nothing that people play as like an engine. And it's just Cheshire Cat is really good. It makes any deck that can splash it a little bit better. I mean, I wouldn't splash it for Cheshire Cat, but like the color itself. But if you're playing blue, then Cheshire Cat's just incredible. And I know its price tag makes it a little like less appealing, but it's literally the only expensive card in Force Wool. It's like a $30 card now, but the next card down, I believe, not counting like rulers or anything, is like Flame of the Outerworld, I believe, which is like $11. So I think it's not that bad. Of course, people still can't afford a $30 card, which I'm totally okay with. Nobody should be able to have to pay for something that's out of their comfort zone, and I totally get that. But like I said, if there was a reprint and it was a cheaper card, everyone can have it, and that way it would still be a really good card. And I don't want to see Cheshire Cat go. I think it gives too much to the game right now that if unless they replace it with maybe like a weaker version of it or something that kind of does the same job for blue, even the stacking I think is really important. So I'd be really sad to see Cheshire Cat go. I know like Alice World is literally Cheshire Cat, Morgiana, Elvish Priest, and Familiar of Holy Wind, which is like everything from the old set, so that if everything gets rotated out, that deck is pretty much done. But I don't know. There's just something about Cheshire that I think is really important to the game. It's just, I don't want to see blue lose more because they already don't have so much. But I guess if they get more in the next set and maybe in Vingolf 2, it won't be so much of a loss. So that's just my thoughts on Cheshire. Mephistopheles, this is also one of those cards that you don't see played too much, but it's always going to have that potential of being a really big beater. Technically, in games like Magic the Gathering, if you talk to any of like the more higher like pro players, they always agree that in a very aggro meta, the best thing you can do is you play something like Reanimate, where you just put a big creature on board they can't get over, or play a deck that can like use control in a way that can push for damage really quickly. And that's originally what Abdul was at first. Grim was always a really fast deck with either Rapunzel or anything like that, and it was really hard to get over everything. But nowadays, if you were able to just, what Abdul's whole deck was is you played a bunch of counters, drop in Mephistopheles, they can't do anything, you're swinging for 15 every turn. If you get 115 in and they target it, that's already half of their life. So I think Mephistopheles is still going to be a really strong card until rotation. It's one of those cards that people are starting to slightly use again, and they're like, people are trying to use it in like Galapis or anything like that. So I don't think it's going to be too much of a loss because black already does have a lot. But in a whole, if you look at black, it's going to be losing quite a lot. I mean, the loss of like Rasputin and Mozart and Nyarlathotep and this and Stoning to Death, it's just kind of a lot for black to lose. So I actually don't know if the loss of this will impact, because the best thing we have for like a 4-drop black after is like Lucifer, Farior, Carmilla. So, which of course Carmilla is going to be rotated out as well. And then Yamata. I've never liked this deck really. I don't like reanimate decks in general. I just feel like they're like kind of. Everyone knows I don't like combo decks, but the one thing I did like about Yamata is at one point when people were using like Niflheim, the like Realm of the Dead or whatever, the field spell, and Necromancy, when they would go like Book of Ebon and they would summon Yamata with the field spell, or no, they would Genesis Creation the field spell back into the field, and then have Yamata, the field spell, and Necromancy would equip onto Yamata, making it a zombie, and then it would get +2 from the field spell because now it's a zombie, and then they would +2 it with Reflect. That I thought was really cool. I don't know what it is about like that like super duper combo interaction, but I actually really like that part of the deck. So I just particularly don't like this deck because a lot of people just play really slow and they just wait and like they try to stall out, and then out of nowhere they just summon this one guy that just kills you, and it's really frustrating because like you could be totally in the lead and you just die. But typically in just the argument that we don't have any kind of like one turn kill kind of card, that's kind of a cool concept Yamata adds to the game. But generally, I've had so many like bad moments with this card. I've been sacked by it so many times that I don't know how to feel about it. But it is going to be one of those creatures in TAT that people actually play decks revolving around this card. And so if it's gone, we're just not going to be able to do that anymore, which is kind of a bummer because I don't think there's anything else worth reviving early except for maybe Izanagi now. I think it's Izanagi, the light one. But even that, like if they kill it, like it's just like it's good removal, but if they kill it, nothing happens. So like they even get their cards back. But like Yamata just wins when you revive him, so that's always fun. And then moving on to spells, Zeke's. This isn't so bad of a loss because we do now have Seal of Light and Wind, but that is light green, which is a lot harder to splash in for some decks, especially if we lose dual stones. It would make more sense for a card like Zeke's to be available because you might be forced to play less colors. But Zeke's was the first card that like negated summons, just like Cakestone was the first to negate spells, and then we of course get Exceed that does both. Like I said, because Seal of Wind and Light and Wall of Wind are cards, losing this isn't so bad of a loss, but I still am going to be really sad to see Zeke leave because the +2 that you can also use on the effect was really nice. The Untargetable was really nice, and the Graveyard Shuffle was nice. Like it was nice to have that all-in-one card, and it's going to be kind of a bummer to see it go. But a lot of people haven't been really playing it anyway, so I guess it's not too relevant to the meta, but it is one of those cards that if the meta does slow down, it just gets better. So we'll have to see how A4 kind of sets the meta up to see if we can at least use Zeke's one format more before it's gone. And then Stoning to Death. Stoning to Death is one of the best block cards in the entire game. What I think, I'm pretty sure there's no other card that just instantly kills a card for 2 cost that quickly. There's Endless Night, but that's 3 cost, and of course it has like the -2 tagged onto it, but that affects your board too, and I don't like that. And there's just Stoning is like the fastest removal card we have, and it's not even seeing that much play because there's just so much like black, just main black isn't really a thing right now. And in Gil Lapis, I think it's a really good card, but he would be a little better to use if Space Time was like people aren't really using Regalias at the moment, so in a format where we are gonna have more Regalias maybe because of the loss of these cards, maybe Space Time Collapse would replace Stoning and just be able to remove the monster and the Regalia. But as of right now, because Stoning is an instant, I just find it a lot easier to use. It just seems like the better card. So for Reflect, there's Portal of Truth. For people that don't know, this card says you can destroy a target whose attack and defense is different from its like original printed attack and defense. So what Reflect was able to do is they would just like, let's say, attack with their biggest creature, you attempt to block, they then chase with the Reflex +2/+2 on your card, and now that you're +2/+2, they just chase Portal of Truth and kill your card. So this card in Reflect becomes like a Stoning to Death, which because it only costs 2, and all you have to do is pay the 0 cost on Reflect in order to do it. And it actually got to the point where this card was really relevant. It's one of the only like easy outs to Arthur as well, because he just taps himself to give it +8/+8. It's now different from its original stats, and you just attack you just attack and then Portal of Truth it, or just Portal of Truth and then attack. So I think Portal of Truth is actually a really good card that's really underestimated, and I liked that interaction because even if it's a 0 cost, I like that Reflect would have to kind of use his like ability that turn just specifically for that. It was kind of a nice interaction between your ruler and your hand that I think was really cool, even though it's so free. But it was kind of like a cool tech card to see because like it's a chance standby and people don't technically use those other than like Signs to the Future. So I liked Portal of Truth a lot. And then Alice World. Alice World was probably the most like relevant thing that ever happened in this game. Nobody is even using the card Alice World anymore, really. Like nobody, if anything, they just kind of take in one for their Speaker of Creation. But this card gives you an additional churn, and when this card first was revealed, everyone knew that one day when we got enough races that this was going to be an issue. And now that they don't even use it because Guiber is just so good and you can protect it so easily with Reflect. but generally, even if they were to somehow like reprint this card, or even if they were to hit like Gwyber somehow, maybe like make it so it's errated, I still think this card would be really strong just on the fact that setting up to get a whole nother turn is essentially the biggest plus you can get, because that means you're getting another chance to deactivate or get a stone, a draw phase, another recovery. It's everything to get another turn, and with or without Gwyber, there might be just something to replace that play. Alice Roll is going to be one of the strongest cards that you can possibly use in a deck that has like the Morgiana and Cheshire and a familiar. Just as long as you have cantrips, it's always going to be a really relevant card. So it's going to be one of those cards that, like, the second rotation happens, I believe Alice Roll is just going to be completely dead because Gwyber just becomes so much slower. There's like no consistent way to draw into it and just keep summoning it, and like Adam Broly loses every relevant like sack target it can possibly have. So Necronomicon. This card isn't really used as much anymore. People don't really use it like at all, but I still tech one in if I play like Gilapis or something, just because I like having the, if everything goes wrong, I still have option like access to this kind of situation. It lets you use your whole hand. It was really fun to use Lumia before Lumia got errated. It was extremely fun with Abdul because he never kind of suffered the ability to be able to endlessly use it. He would just negate it in the chase of like something like Thunder. They would go back to his graveyard and then he would just use it again. So that was always really fun too. It's in a slower meta, Necronomicon's always going to be really good, especially if you have like just you use all your kill spells early and flood the field with like all your dark monsters, and then just play Necronomicon and just do it all again. So it's going to be one of those cards that isn't as strong anymore, so I'm kind of bummed out to see it go. I think, like, I love when somebody plays Necronomicon and you're just like, and you're just like freaking out because you're just like, he's going to use his whole graveyard. Like, can I see your graveyard, like, in the chase, to make sure you just like aren't going to get like destroyed by something that's coming up. And it's just kind of a cool card that at first it was really annoying and it kind of gave like Abdul too much in the beginning. But as of right now, I think it's kind of a cool card, and it's going to be a bummer to see that go as well. And then Rapid Decay. I was going to put Duel of Truth alongside with this because for some reason I relate those cards really easily, but I decided to just stick with Rapid Decay because I think it's the only card we have that specifically kind of targets a cost kind of on a creature. No, it doesn't target the actual cost, but I mean like it's relative to it. So other than like Dark Alice, where you pick a number and you destroy all those cost cards, I believe Rapid Decay is the only one. And being able to have like if they were to reprint Rapid Decay and we lost Thunder, of course I'd still rather use Demon Flame over Rapid Decay, but it would kind of be like a cool slower version of Thunder to take care of those like Elvish Priests and stuff. And maybe in a meta where, for all we know, if we lose Elvish Priest and they make another green mana dork, it might be like a 1/6 or a 0/6, and now it's like out of Demon Flame's range anyway. And so a card like Rapid Decay would go back to being more relevant. So I could actually see them reprinting Rapid Decay again because it's one of those cards that I feel like just does enough, especially because it's a chant. But it was reprinted in Vingolf 1, so I don't know if they're going to go bother like by bringing it back altogether again. I'd actually be a lot happier if they just brought back like some of the older Valhalla cards that weren't broken, because there's just like a lot of promos that we have that would be decent cards. There's a card like Spell Transcription that it's a 2 green cost, and it says like when your opponent plays a card, you can chase with it, and it like copies the card, and if it's a spell, you pick new targets. So if they stoning, you can copy a stoning and play like a stoning on their card. It doesn't like negate those, so you would still take the stoning, but it's kind of a cool like card to think of. I feel like that wouldn't be like really that broken. It would just be like a fun card to use. So it also be like a really interesting card to be like wary of, because now it's like green has counters and they can copy stuff, and that would be kind of cool. And yeah, so that's the last addition to just all the tower cards. If you guys didn't see anything and I'm maybe missing something, you can let me know. Leave it in the comment section below. Let me know what you guys think generally about these dual stones as well, and just any of these cards. The Lost of Cheshire Cat, if you think it's good or bad, or the Alice World kind of is going to be a really big impactful change to the entire meta as well. So yeah, leave a comment in the comment section below. And if you guys haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do, because I have the NPR video and MOA video coming next week, and I'll definitely catch you guys next time.